Frequency Matters, the RF and Microwave Update Series. I'm Pat Hindle. I'm here with my co-host Gary LaRude. This episode, we're going to take a look at our September amplifiers and oscillators issue. This theme is usually typically earlier in the year, but because of some of the show dates, we had to move it to September. But it's always a great issue, and I had a good time putting together the cover story for this. Extremely high-power GaN devices. So I had a contribution from Qorvo on a 65-volt GaN process, and that's an L-band device putting out 160 watts, and that's in a plastic package.
Wow.
So they had some really good thermal innovations in the packaging end. And then Integra Technologies, an even more extreme process. They have a high voltage GaN process now that does 100 volt operating at CW and 150 volt operating voltage at pulsed.
Huh.
And so that achieves up to 20 watts per millimeter, which is a very high power density. I think these are the best results I've seen.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you haven't seen it, last episode we interviewed two executives from Integra Technology about the high voltage GaN process. So take a look at that interview if you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
And then I end up the article with some of the thermal solutions that we've seen over the years, the GaN substrates that people are using, and then a new entrant into the packaging technology is JetCool. And we saw them for the first time in the startup pavilion at IMS this year. And they're actually doing a liquid cooling directly to the chip, and they're achieving like 10 times better thermal conductivity than some of the advanced packaging that's being used now. So it'll be interesting to see how that catches on.
Yeah, that's a great cover story.
So what did you see for the technical features?
Well, we have three other technical features. One is part two of our K-band synthesizer using the optoelectronic phase-locked oscillator. This is the collaboration between Drexel University and Synergy Microwave. The first article last month talked about the design of the oscillator. This month they're talking about how to integrate it to make it smaller and using some silicon photonics technology, so that's interesting. We have another interesting article. I mean, all three are interesting, but another one more applications-oriented. This is from Rohde & Schwarz on an airport security scanner. They use millimeter wave technology, and it's an active system, which means it transmits. So it's a multi-static array, and they're borrowing some algorithms from the radio astronomy sector to put it all together and get the performance they need. And of course, for a security system, it's got to be quick. It's got to have great sensitivity and resolution to detect any kind of weapons, potential weapons. And of course, passenger privacy is a major concern. Yeah. So it's a really interesting article, and they're deploying these systems in Europe and I think also in the US.
Yeah, I've seen some announcements on those.
And then the third one is another interesting application. This is an ultra-wideband radar system for snow probing, and it covers 2 to 18 gigahertz. One of the interesting aspects of this is that they developed it using X-microwave building blocks. So it allows the form factor to be nice, usable in the field, and of course they didn't have to develop each of the individual building blocks. And they've actually flown this on a NASA plane out of Greenland to do mapping of the snow and ice and try to detect changes due to climate change. So it's a real interesting application of microwave technology.
And so turning to the news on the 5G front, Rohde & Schwarz announced that they have the industry's first 5G location-based services session that they performed in partnership with Qualcomm. And so they used Qualcomm devices. They were able to verify an AGPS session, and they used a 5G new radio connection, non-standalone, and they were able to verify GPS fixes according to 3GPP requirements. So that's a new first on the 5G front. And then Qualcomm also, in another area, is working with the Department of Information Technologies of Moscow and some of the Russian companies and operators, and they're deploying and testing the first 5G millimeter wave network in Europe. And so that'll be deploying and going online very soon in the fall.
Oh, interesting.
I've seen a couple announcements now from this Department of Information Technologies of Moscow, and it looks like Russia's really trying to show their 5G expertise to the world that they hadn't been disclosing too much information about previously.
Right, they seem to be an early adopter of the millimeter wave side.
Yes. What did you see in the news?
So there's a company in Switzerland called Swiss-to-12. They build components for satellites, and they use an interesting 3D printing process. And by 3D printing, they can get very lightweight as well as good performance and very complex geometries. They can do things that can't be done using conventional mechanical techniques. And they've just raised $18.5 million in a Series B financing round. So this is going to allow them to accelerate their technology development and market penetration. They also announced with Tyvak nanosatellites a partnership where both of them are going to work together to develop mini geosatellites. So I wasn't familiar with that category, but they fly at geostationary orbit, but they're small, about the size of a refrigerator, and they're used more for regional applications. And Swiss-to-12 actually is going to be doing more of the complete payloads for these kinds of systems. So it's a real interesting startup company, and it's good to see them being so successful.
Yeah, there's been a lot of consolidation. It's so nice to see a lot of startups coming into the market to fill any voids left by that.
Right, and particularly in the satellite industry, that's typically been where big incumbents have played, and it's nice to see some little companies getting into it.
So turning to events, this will be the final reminder for EDICon
Right.
Online. It takes place September 10th through the 12th. And all the sessions will be recorded and available to watch at any time afterwards. So if you miss them, you can watch them at your convenience. They're all free, so we thank our sponsors for allowing it to be free to the viewing audience. And also, it's available for IEEE continuing education credits. So
Nice.
go to edicononline.com and register.
And as we get past that, we're also thinking about the upcoming European Microwave Conference at the end of this month. Starts on the 29th of September, runs the full week to the 4th of October. And we have some online show daily opportunities. If you're involved in the marketing for your company, you may want to participate in our online show dailies, and that appears both on the website and in the newsletter. We're also booking appointments for video demos and interviews.
Yep.
So we encourage you to get in touch with us, your sales representative, so that you don't get left out. And we hope to see many of you at European Microwave in just a few weeks in Paris this year.
Great place.
Exactly. So I think that's a wrap for this episode. We want to thank you for watching, and we want to thank our sponsor, MACOM, for making this possible. They've been a long-time sponsor, and we truly appreciate that, and they're your partner from RF to Light. Until next time.